Hello, welcome back. It's Grellenheimer. I don't want to make this as short. I do have to be very quick, though. I'm in a rush. But I did make a short by accident about my Spotify account, and I was talking about one playlist in general. My Christian playlist, that's right. But this is about everything else. Okay. If you remember, I am Nifty1272. I'm not really trying to put myself out there so much, but I'm actually thinking of y'all because one, I used to be a DJ for a short-lived time as a volunteer doing jazz radio. It was an experience, and long story short, yeah, too late. I enjoy video game music. When I was first introduced by buying the Thunder Force 5 imported on the Saturn, it was supposed to be just the game, and Byright 1, who is now out of business, gave me the special edition by mistake. And it was the first time I ever heard video game music arranged outside of the actual game music. And it was, well, nirvana, for lack of a better term. It was wonderful. I was on cloud nine, riding a little Honda Civic, playing a CD through a cassette thingy to be able to hear it through my speakers back then. And I was just enjoyment cloud nine. And as a result of not just that, but also reading old magazines, EGM, GameFAQs, something like that, they actually had mentioned about how in Japan they actually had a symphony that would tour and do music from video games like Legend of Zelda. And I'm like, why don't they do that here? Give it about 30 years or so. Yeah, we have video games live along with other people and other groups and even indie bands doing video game music. About 20 years ago, 18 to 15 years ago, I was going on Amazon, and what I called the garbage bands of Amazon, I was buying up, maybe not whole albums. I was a little picky because I didn't have that kind of money to buy just everything. And I'd be, I like the sound of this. I like this, because you could demo it, you could listen to it, and you could buy it and download it and put it on your MP3, burn it on a CD or whatever. And I did that. Made lots of MP3 CDs also, and had some ways of listening to that too. So, and because this all leads to Spotify, the playlist that I've been creating, and they're still growing because I keep finding more music. New Friday release day or whatever, some stuff even pops up. So, and I've only been in Spotify for about a year and a half. Okay. Or a little over a year now. And so I've got all these different playlists. Driving music is a little of everything. You're going to hear some pop music, some stuff that I grew up with that I liked listening to while I drove, but a whole lot of video game music in there too. And maybe some anime stuff. Street Fighter Radio, fairly recent that I've created, just doing nothing but the music from Street Fighter. Zelda Radio. And I mean, you're not really going to hear a whole lot of in-game music so much, because some of these older games are so old, the original music didn't sound that great. Now, Street Fighter 2, on the other hand, that music sounded pretty good. I just didn't like the sound that the Super Nintendo made. I like the Genesis music chip better, but slap me from the internet if you wish. 8-bit Big Band is a playlist, and it's based off the same name. It has all their albums in there. Some other people may have done the same thing. Phantasy Star Radio, a couple of thousand songs in that one, from arrangements of the original Phantasy Stars from the Genesis, Phantasy Star Zero, Phantasy Star Zero 2, Phantasy Star Card Battle, there's a bunch of stuff in there. The PSO arranged CD, which I also have in physical media, probably one of the best things they've done. I guess you heard that, excuse me. Mega Man, oh yeah. Yes, that is the name of the playlist. Mega Man, oh yeah. OH, yeah. The Joe Satriani folder if you like Joe Satriani like I do, I found all his stuff on Spotify just about. Put it all in. There's a couple of hundreds of songs actually and tracks. Gunstar Heroes has its own little playlist. Castlevania Radio is pretty big, and I like listening to that one. Some of those are some of the in-game music that sounds okay, like from the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, it's not that great, but a lot of good arrangements, a lot of good bands in there. You're going to find Sonic Gaming Radio. I don't know why I call it that, but it's Sonic. It's gaming. It's all the music from all the Sonics for the most part. But I was trying to use arranged music, retro remix review. I can see the guy's name, the guy from the music from the original games like Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, etc. Sonic R, Sonic 3D Blast, the Saturn version or PC version. The music was wonderful, etc., etc. Sega. So you're going to hear Sonic music in Sega, but you're not going to hear all other Sega games in Sonic Gaming Radio, okay? Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is all the Final Fantasy music I can find. You're going to find a lot of original game music, the remixed by Sean Skifiansky or whatever his name is, that they've been doing. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, Final Fantasy Tactics, etc., etc., 13, 11, 14, 15, 16. If I could find an FF album, I stuck it in there. Now, there is a Nintendo radio. I didn't write that down here, but I have a Nintendo radio playlist. You won't hear any Final Fantasy music past 6. Trying to keep it Nintendo, because after the Super NES, Squeenix said, we're going to the PlayStation with 7, and it's, Sony exclusive, blah, blah, blah. Of course, come 30 years later, it's everywhere. It can be streamed, even be played and downloaded on Xbox. Pop music, you're going to find everything. I probably have too much Christian music in there. That's when I actually made a Christian playlist. But you're going to find stuff from the 50s and 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and some stuff even now that even if it's artists I don't completely like John Legend or Taylor Swift, there's some in there, a few tunes that I can kind of stand and for the whole family to really enjoy, including some even big band stuff from like the 40s and whatnot. And you're like, whoa, wow, whoa. You're going to hear Zippity Doodah in there. You're going to hear Convoy. We got us here, Convoy. The opening song from Smokey and the Bandit, etc., etc. Maybe some Disney music in there as well. Just a ton of stuff that you'll be like, whoa, I don't like that. Skip. Oh, I remember this. Let's listen to that. Things to listen to while you're driving or whatever, or working. Video game music, that's where everything is. There's almost 9,000 tracks in there. That's what I like the most. I just listen to the whole thing. It's like listening to real video game radio that I accidentally found on Yahoo.com like 20-something years ago. I don't even know if that video game radio is even on Yahoo anymore like it used to be. It's a whole different website, and it's probably an app now, and they probably don't even have that anymore. I don't know that, but that's what inspired me to do something like this. Once I found, my wife said, why don't you on Spotify and pay for it for the whole family? RPGs, nothing but RPGs. I do have some Zelda in there, not a true RPG, but close enough, and it's an adventure game. Final Fantasy games, Mario RPG might even be in there. Shining Force, Shining Wisdom, Shining the Holy Ark, maybe. All whatever you can think of, and I'm trying to add even more and find even more on Spotify as I can find it. Is amazing. And if you care for Spyro Gyra, I got a Spyro Gyra playlist because I was a boat dock rat, or pier person, whatever you want to call it. Dock rat. My parents had a sailboat, and we didn't go to church. We went and spent time on our boat and whatever, and we went from one boat to another, and he sold one, got another. It was an interesting life, but that's not where we lived. It was just my dad's hobby, and he had to give it up when he got a little older. When we had grandkids, he's like, I can't do this anymore. So, but it was fun for what it was, and I instead of saving up my money to try to buy my own boat, I squandered it on junk games and whatnot, and books and comics and toys, and I could have bought me a bass boat or something in the 90s for as much as I put into junk. So, I know this is the 21st century and things are different. Money is hard to come by, hard to save. Every day is different than the last, but in the meantime, if you have access to Spotify, check me out, Nifty 1272. Lots of stuff out there to listen to. Hopefully a decent variety. I don't like a too much culture stuff, but there is a WVSU 91.1 jazz stuff in there. And the more video game music that I found that is very jazz-like, there's some video game music in there, but it's very sprinkled and it's very light. But you will hear you'll be going from like Dave Brubeck or Duke Ellington, or oh god, I can see his face. I always started my radio show with All or Nothing, John Coltrane, and then all of a sudden you might like be hearing, and you're like, that's Ghosts and Goblins. What is that? Is that a level from Sonic? Sure enough, it is. So there's all sorts of, you never know what you're gonna find. So with that, I gotta go. But Nifty 1272 is an address for an apartment I haven't lived in over 25 years. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't have a great day, have a blessed day, and have a good one from Alabama.